You're listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast, the show that helps you build wealth faster, think outside the box, and break out of the herd. Here's your host, Jim Oliver.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, Loral Langemeier. Welcome, Loral. How are you?
Good. How are you, Jim?
Better than I deserve, I think, today on a Tuesday. So, we are on opposite ends of the country, or at least I thought so until last week I came back from Hawaii, and that flight, it's not worth it. From where you're at, it's worth it.
It's only 5 hours. Yeah.
From where I'm at, it's not worth it.
9 or 10, isn't it?
It's 9 hours from Honolulu to Atlanta, and then an hour and a half or so after that.
Yeah.
And there's lots of other islands over here that are 2 hours away from Miami that I'd rather go to. So anyway,
I go down. I'd go up to the BVI. That'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get started, Loral, because I think you got a lot of cool stuff we want to talk about, just introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about you and your background and what you're all about.
Perfect. Well, it's kind of what I'm known for, not kind of what I am known for. It's my 25th anniversary of being the Millionaire Maker. And I grew up on a farm in Nebraska. Fast forward, have finance and exercise physiology, exercise masters. Took those 2 degrees and studied basically the analytics to how much unhealthy people cost companies. So that was in the late 80s, actually 90s. So 90s, I built 272 fitness centers for Chevron, offshore oil rigs, lived in helicopters and seaplanes out of New Orleans as a shore base. And Bob Proctor, I've had the greats, all the greats as my mentors, Zig Ziglar, Ron, you name him, Brian Tracy, and then became partners with Bob. We had a program where people would pay us $100,000 just to work with us 2 for 1 year. And which really led me into the Millionaire Maker, The Secret, Dr. Phil. I've been Dr. Phil's money expert. And then fast forward, I took a little break in 2012 from writing books until I could prove how to make your kids millionaires on paper. So how do you use infinite banking as the insurance to fund trusts, corporate life, I call it, living corporate life. Your companies are held in trusts. So we integrate people's wealth for a family. So as you know, the financial world is extremely segregated. People have licenses in every category. Most of them never cross-collateralize or even have a conversation. So you have an estate attorney trying to put together, an estate, no corporate structure or very little, tax plan that doesn't make any sense, and insurance folks that don't know how to fund a trust. So then you have all these people going, who knows how to glue this together? So I became the glue. So I help facilitate the family's behavior on how to live this life. A lot of people can set up the structures, but then who actually puts it together, make sure the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. So I kind of found this little lane that CPAs don't do. And I fit right in there. We're doing amazing work reducing people's taxes, setting up their legacy. And I'd say I facilitate families. And especially families that are higher net worth, that they're so busy being busy and investing in their businesses, they forget the kids. And then the kids about inherit and they wonder why the kids blow it because they lacked any plan. They had a plan. It just wasn't documented right. So I've been doing this for a long time. I have a millionaire in 8 categories: real estate, gas and oil, supplement companies, recycled glass, all sorts of things. So I just have fun. I love making money. I love teaching people how to make money and pay the minimum legal tax.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. There's you said a lot there. So let me think of where we So I want to get to all of those things. Let me think of the order. Okay, got it. So let's just start with, this is something that's like near and dear to my heart, is that, I tell everybody that everything that you're told and taught about money is a lie. Everything that you're taught about health is a lie. Everything you're taught about food is a lie. And I really believe that because it's meant to control us, right? And so I love the supplement stuff. I'm really getting into peptides.
I am too.
It's just, and if people say to me, I'm 60 and I have abs, you can't see them right now, and I'm not going to take my shirt off, but trust me, they're there. But people say to me, what are you taking? Like I'm taking like something bad. And I'm like, I take a little bit of testosterone and I take peptides. And they're like, what are peptides? I'm like,
Little shots in your stomach.
yeah, exactly. You know how many a day? Like on some days it's like 8. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, hey, these peptides, here, you got to go see my doctor. She's badass. And they're like, whoa, how much does she charge? Like, wait a minute.
That's
What
wrong
do you mean, how much does
conversation.
Yeah, she charges less than what it's going to cost you in the nursing home. And I'm in Florida, so there's a bunch of old people. And when I'm saying 60, I'm young for here.
Yeah.
And I see people that are 65 and
Yeah.
walkers, and I see people that are 88 playing tennis 6 days a week. And
Well, you pick your path.
yeah, exactly. Both of them are hard, by the way, right? Getting up at 4:30 and working out at 5 a.m. like I do is hard, but being fat's hard too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's go back to this money lie first.
I
What's
love
the
it.
top 5 myths around money that you see, Laurel?
Oh, wow. Well, I got to start with the making money. That making money, as Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman would teach, is go get a job. If you need more money, get a second job. That is a total lie. The
Totally.
wealthiest live in entrepreneurial structure. So we get LLCs, S Corps, C Corps, limited partnerships. We hold those in trust. So number one, how you make money should be in a company and you paid a little bit. So like I'm a single mom, make $36,000. I have an 18-year-old, a 25-year-old, and that's it. I don't know. There's my fun part, Jim. I say, which is true. Like, I don't own a home, I don't own a car, and I don't own a phone. People say, well, how do you function? My companies own it, and those are allowances for me being the CEO of a variety of companies. So living corporate life and how you make money has to be in a company. Number two is that I call overpaying taxes an invisible pain because people just used to doing it and they can't wait for their refund. And it's like, well, that's just giving the government a 0% loan. Didn't really make a lot of sense. Third biggest lie is that divorce is the biggest takedown of wealth. It isn't. It's just your health, number one, and then an unplanned legacy. So if you haven't planned it, it's planned for you. You will go through probate and have a living hell. I have some clients that are literally in 30-year probate situations. Most families create a lot of wealth, hand it to uneducated brat. Trust fund babies, not the answer. What's another lie? Oh, that debt's bad. No, debt's the cost of money. Debt arbitrage, right, is one of the greatest things you could ever do. And probably another fifth lie, I could go on forever, would be that I'm going to be a self-made millionaire. No, you're going to be team-made because you can't do this all by yourself. There's a lot of moving parts. So there's just a lot to it. And it's just the whole thing has been taught wrong. And then the other part too, Jim, that when people say, oh, well, it should be taught in the schools. No, it should be taught at home because everybody has a different family legacy. I call it roots and wings, right? The character you want to put down to your kids will determine whether they keep your legacy or they blow your legacy. So those kids matter. I have a YouTube channel, 5 years old and up, family friendly, intentional. Because one of the biggest questions, Jim, people ask me, well, how do I start talking about money? I did it so late. And I'll say, well, I have a Millionaire Maker game. So put a game around your table. And if you haven't played a game in a while, start with Monopoly, do a little warm up, and then play the big game and leave it out for a month. Watch my YouTube channel. And here's what I actually created a journal for parents to say, okay, kids, what topic did she talk about? What did you learn and what are you going to do? 365 days later, you've got 365 actions and a different conversation with money in your household. But you have to start. And most parents think it's just not their job. They think iPads and phones are their job of the kids.
So you know what it is I think that everybody like, when like any false belief that you have, it's like, who taught you that false belief?
Yeah.
And parents, they don't know anything about money. So even though they made money or they got lucky or they were in the right place at the right time or they invested in real estate and they did these things, most of them don't teach their kids to do that because even if they were a high school dropout, they own 1,000 doors and they're making $4 million a year and paying zero tax. You know what they tell their kids to do? Go to school, right? Yeah, go to school and get an education because they didn't have one. And that's why. And you got to have the confidence to not do that. It's so funny because I literally just got some preliminary copies of my new book, Ownership. And I talk about running your life like a business, right? Like a ledger, having a ledger, like running your personal life like a business, but also your health, right? Like you can't just say, I'm going to eat, well, that's not that bad, or I'm eating like what everybody else is eating or whatever. And it's
no.
And then you go, wonder why my blood work is so screwed up, or you don't even get blood work done. So you don't even know until you have that little twinge in your heart. Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. let's
Well,
go
I
back.
want to talk. I want to
Yeah.
add something to that because having a background in exercise physiology,
Yeah.
I started my world in health and then went to wealth. But knowing that the biggest takedown of wealth is health, the way I teach it is, if you look at the medical system, right, that the traditional hospitals is traditional hospitals, but like you, we both take peptides. I do hot yoga.
Yeah.
I'm up all the time. I'm actually next week going to be. I'm going to hit your decade, so I turned 60. I don't have any wrinkles. I don't have any Botox. This is all natural. And I say the healthiest live in alternatives. The
Yeah.
wealthiest, which is what I teach, live in alternatives. So anything that's like mainstream norm, I'd say Wall Street norm.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's wrong. It's wrong.
Yeah.
So if you want to be healthy and wealthy, you have to find alternatives. So they're not the Schwabs, the Fidelities. They're not the big firms. They're the very boutique firms. Like people say, oh, do you use the big four for tax? Hell no. Oh, no. The big four are for the publicly traded companies. We're private enterprise, family legacy. So there's very strategically organized for you and your family alternatively. And then the last thing you need to do is run around once you've made a commitment to live this life. So, people say, well, you do have a program. I said, no, I have a lifestyle. I teach you a new lifestyle, how to live in this corporate structure. They said, well, how do you send your kids through college as a corporate expense? It's like, it's in the IRS code, but nobody knows how to do it. And your CPA, here's what I say about CPAs. Most of them, and my son's becoming one, he's got one last test, is, most CPAs do a historical look back, right? Jim Oliver hands his big box and says, here's my shit at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And they do their best to replay it and then, say this is what you owe. Versus tax strategists, I call it, I coin these words, like I forecast forward. You're going to spend money. So which company pays for your phone? Which company pays for wardrobe? Which company pays for your car? Which company pays, your company, move your expenses into company legal deductions, you change your life. And most people have no idea how to do it. So
I totally agree.
the alternatives are where you live. It's where I live. It's where the wealthiest and the healthiest live.
Yeah. Well, that's something else too, is there's a reason, again, we might disagree on humidity, but I think that's about the only thing so far that I disagree about. But no, I'm just kidding. By the way, I loved it in Hawaii when it's not that humid, but I'm used to the humidity. But it's sunny 300 and whatever days a year here. It's sunny where you're at. You can get outside. You said you ski a lot, those kinds of things. When you are working every day for 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day, and you think that's how you get ahead, then it doesn't matter where you live. You might as well live in, forgive me, Michigan people, but like you might as well be dark and gloomy for 6 months out of the year. But it's funny what you said about taxes, because I was just talking to a client, and it was one of the success story podcast episodes. And this guy in 5 years took his $300,000 balance out of his 401k, and he started investing in real estate. Now he has 500 mobile home pads and 150 apartments. And he just closed on a deal yesterday. I can't remember what it was, but it was a couple million down. So it was it was a nice deal, right? Yeah. And I said, now, Glenn, tell everybody how much you paid in taxes, because you had to get killed in taxes when you rolled that 401k, didn't you? And he said, no, I just had to pay the 10% penalty, but because I had all this depreciation, it netted out, and so I said, yeah, because a traditional financial planner tells you, don't touch that 401k. You're going to have to pay 50% in taxes. But not if you're smart, right?
Yep.
And again, I don't care if you love him or hate him, anybody in the audience, but I don't know, it was like 2017 or something. And I was watching I walked by a TV, it wasn't my TV, and when they had the Today Show on, and they said, Donald Trump is a terrible businessman. He lost over $1 billion in the last 10 years. And I was like, oh no, they're going to tell people about depreciation and blah, 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 blah. And then everybody's going to know. And no, they didn't tell anybody. They just wanted to bash Donald Trump. And it's like, that's why he doesn't want to release his tax returns, is because he doesn't want to show. I mean, there's, if you understand taxes, then, but it goes back to what you said, your game. And I want to hear more about this game, because I love cash flow. I love that Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is not a real story, is.
I love that you say that. So I was the master distributor of the cash flow game. I put it on the map.
Well,
Yep.
so I love cash flow, right? But I tell people that learn to play Monopoly first because there's little nuances to Monopoly. I agree with him. The only rule that really matters is 4 houses equal a hotel. Totally. That's how you win Monopoly, right?
Yeah.
But when you watch people play Monopoly and you watch people play cash flow, you have this opportunity. No, I'm going to pass. That's what they do in life, right?
I don't cash on any. I buy everything.
I have a business partner in a trash company that we have, and Nick Costco, he works with Create Tailwind too. But his 8-year-old son, so 2 years ago when he was 6 years old, I had never lost a game of Monopoly. And he beat me because Nick taught him the right way to play.
I love it.
And he got, Monopoly, there's a certain amount of luck. He got all of it. He never landed on my hotels. He didn't land on, and it was a one-on-one game, which is not the way to play Monopoly. But anyway, now in Hawaii, he and I were 3-0 because we were a team playing against other people in the group. And so at 8 years old, I would put this kid up against anybody in Monopoly.
Yep.
And I'm not even worried about this kid in life because he already gets it. Now, we worked on his negotiating skills because he was like $50. No, then 100, then 200. Hold on a second. Let's slow down that roll on negotiations. But once we got that down, the kid is brutal. So tell us about, because you know what? Everybody likes to play games, whether it's golf, whether it's, taking
cards, poker,
whatever it is you learn by playing a game, right? You learn. And you learn how to play. You could have the best golf swing in the world, but if you can't play golf, then you're not going to be any good.
Yep.
So talk about your game.
So the Millionaire Maker, because I did the cash flow for 5 years, and then 1999 was when I hit my real estate millionaire year, and then later that year, gas and oil, and just knew I wanted a game. I also had watched the cash flow go online, and when it went online, all the calculations were done for you. So all of a sudden, the learning's gone. Because the power in the cash flow game after all those years is, every transaction in real estate, it affects all of it. It affects your P, right? Your L, your income and expense, your assets liability. And if you're not manually moving around doing the math, so you actually see how the money flows, which is the cash flow, you missed it because the calculator, the computer did it. So all of a sudden these numbers would pop up, but the learning was gone. Right. They could have probably fixed it if they would ask supplemental questions saying, so Jim, how much did that affect your income? How much did it affect your expenses? How much affect your insurance, your tax? Like there was no learning. And so all of a sudden it became kind of a bunch of joke. Quite frankly, I believe, I don't know this is fact, but I'm pretty sure the investors didn't get their money back because it was an up and down really fast. So knowing that, and also knowing that they sent the whole game to Asia to be produced, and there was a ripoff before it even came back to the US to be sold. So watching that, when I built my game, which by the way, 2 doctors built it that were clients of mine. They were millionaires and they love building games. I'm like, this is going to be complicated because to become a millionaire, it takes more than just the cash flow of real estate. So it's what's your operating company. You have to have what I call TLC points, team leadership and conditioning. So if you actually, on my game, if you go around and try to buy gas and oil, you don't have TLC, which is team leadership and conditioning, you don't get to buy it. Because there's an accredited status. So I start teaching. I teach all the real facts. So there's all sorts of business deals in there that you can do. Of course, older adults do what? They go right down the debt channel because you got to be out of debt. The kids don't care. The kids, like you said, they blow the adults away because they go in there, I'm going to go make money. I'm going to go buy a bunch of investments. So they head down the right path. So it's a board game. Everyone starts in the middle. And I have cool pieces. And when I sent mine to China, I sent it to 4 different cities and locations. So one group just made these beautiful, like one's a gas and oil piece, one's an apartment complex, one is a piece of gold. So all these different assets are your playing piece. And then you all get a different P&L and balance sheet of somebody. And your goal is to make them a millionaire. And when you get really good at my game, then you rotate 2 seats or 1 seat, and I would take over whatever you did. So here's what I believe is, and I know, like if I can take over your P&L and balance sheet and find a pattern out to become a millionaire by using all sorts of game situations, you can play in life. And so it's way more sophisticated. I have like a quick start to get into it, and it's fun. The kids always win because you got to go for money. You got to go for balance. Being out of debt is not the formula. Every millionaire I know, except for as they're older in life and pay out, they carry debt, appropriate debt, cheap debt.
So you're saying that the kids win because they're not afraid, and the adults are afraid, and they live their lives as slaves,
Yep.
and they've learned to be good slaves. Kids don't know how to be slaves, and so they go, "Oh, this makes sense, right?"
Yeah.
We could
And
probably
you
go
look
down that rabbit hole for more than 30 minutes. But
It's true. And what's interesting, I call it inherited behaviors, and really challenge like the kids, the family. I start all the way back. Like, why do you live where you live? I live in Lake
yeah,
Tahoe because I love the mountains. I love the water. I love to ski. I grew
yeah,
up on a farm in Nebraska. I grew up
yeah.
in a cornfields my whole life. I don't live in the mountain and water, and spiritually, it does amazing things for me and my soul. So my kids were on the national ski team. I mean, we lived a very different life. We didn't just inherit and say, "Oh, I'm just going to get what I got and don't throw a fit." I threw a big fit, and I left.
Where in Nebraska?
A little town called Mead. It's in between Lincoln and Omaha in the
Oh,
southeast corner.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Northeast
So I
corner.
used to have a house in Dakota Dunes, South Dakota,
Yeah.
and it was right on the Missouri River. And so when I looked out my backyard, I saw Nebraska. And we use an insurance company out of Lincoln, Nebraska, on some of our infinite banking stuff, Emeritus Life
Yep.
Insurance, and they're big Nebraska Cornhusker
Oh yeah.
sponsors. And so it's funny because I grew up in California and then ended up in the Midwest for a big period. Colorado used to be the Midwest, and now it's the People's Republic of Colorado. But
Yeah.
and then you grew up in Nebraska, and you're like, I'm going to California.
Going to the West Coast.
So
Nevada. I'm on the Nevada
Nevada, I'm
team.
sorry. Yeah, that's
Gotta
right.
be in
Yeah, you're
Nevada.
not stupid enough to
Live in California
California.
with that governor.
Yeah. So Tahoe always confuses me because it's right there, right?
Yeah, it's mostly in California actually.
Yeah.
Less of the lake and the lakes of the land. So you gotta live on the Nevada side, get the Nevada taxes. I lived in California for 13 years and then straddled, and then 2000 started buying over here and just moved, and so we're done. And we're
Don't,
never leaving.
don't you love when you're talking to a doctor, and let's just say, just for use a round number, a doctor's making $1 million a year and they're living across the river in Iowa and they're paying 8% state income tax or whatever the hell it is. And that you say, hey, if you move over to South Dakota and there's no state income tax,
Exactly.
and you do procedures at your own surgery center that don't need to be at the hospital, do you know how much money you're going to make?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, I can go buy that $3 million house and it's basically free. I'm just off my tax savings. Yes,
Yep.
that's what I'm
Yep.
saying.
Yep.
And, it's like they act like they've never heard that before because
They
I
have
love
it.
what you said about CPAs. This is the first question that I ask somebody when they say, well, I got to talk to my CPA. And I say, oh, let me ask you just a real quick question. Is your CPA wealthy?
Yeah.
And you know what they say 90% of the time?
No.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because every CPA that I know that is wealthy, they're not making money doing the accounting. They have real estate and businesses and everything else. And they're not just filling out tax forms, because every CPA, not every CPA, 90% of CPAs, all they want to do, they don't want you outside that black and white box.
And they
'Cause if
like they like the Schedule C little 33 little deduction box. And it's like,
Yes.
I don't even like sole proprietor. I always say, and I use a lot of sarcastic words, just kind of wake people up. I say,
Yeah.
so being a sole proprietor is illegal. And they're like, what do you mean it's illegal?
Yeah.
It's not like illegal. It's just ridiculously the stupidest thing you can do to yourself financially, because you're not getting any more credit. You're not getting any more credit scores. You get like 8 to 33 little deductions on a little box, and you have absolutely no protection. So why waste your time?
Laura, have you ever heard of the concept? If you have, you're gonna laugh when I say this. Is revocation of election?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many guys do you know in jail that have done that?
Actually, I don't know how many.
I know 2.
Okay.
But everybody thinks I can just revoke my election of being part of that. Like, why would you take that risk? There's ways that you can pay no tax.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, just
you don't have to live in Puerto Rico to do it. You can actually live corporate structure anywhere in the world and still play the strategy at the highest level.
I know. And so I have a few crypto businesses, mining, and my business partner just sent me a thing from Prague. He's at some conference. I'm sure I'm paying for that, but no, I'm just kidding. Kind of kidding. And all these people want to move to Puerto Rico. I don't want to live in Puerto Rico.
I don't either. I don't want to live
so they have a whole, I mean, as you know, there's like a whole society of wealthy people thinking I've got to be here 6 months and 1 day. It's like the Canadians coming down. And it's like, it's funny because, again, who taught us that? I mean, everything that you've been taught about money is a lie. And I love that. So like, just the audience knows this, but just so that you know my background a little bit, and this is going to lead into the next question, is I was one of those financial babysitters for 15 years because I grew up really poor. This is how they told me people made money. And I thought, well, I'm going to help people make money this way. And I made a lot of money. I had 700 million under management. I was charging 1%. That's not a bad deal. And for me, and I realized that when they sent this thing out on one of the platforms, I won't name it, that and it said that your return for this period for your clients was 9.38%. I thought that's pretty good. And I said, wait a minute, I have money in that. It didn't grow by 9.38%. That's not what they mean when they say that that's what you did. Like, here's your return. But if you take fees and expenses and taxes and everything, it was less than 4%.
Yep.
And so I went, wait a minute. How did my clients, these guys that have 700 million, how did they make their money? And it came down to two things. And I got rid of the ones, this is Denver, and it was a long time ago, but it was like, so like the people that just walked into the cable company and they just like, it was like being the janitor at Google. I threw them out. It came down to two things: real estate and businesses. But it really came down to alternative investments. One guy he had oil wells like all over the world, and he had so much money, drank like a fish, but he had so much money, he didn't know what to do with it. And I said, wait a minute, you mean they lied to me? This is not how you make money? So like, talk about when you had that epiphany, like where were you in your career? Because I love that you have the health background and all of that, because I try to explain to people, like, when you know you're not going to run out of money, you start taking care of yourself, because I can live forever.
Yep. My first epiphany was Think and Grow Rich, which is the book. Yeah, forever. That was at 17. So you imagine Farm Girl reading Think and Grow Rich. And I got it from Dennis Waitley at a big, athletic conference that I was at. And that changed the trajectory, which is when I got a bachelor's degree in business finance. And then from there, that was probably the big one. Then I would say, like, hanging out in the Bob Proctor world, Ron the Great, like all the greats have done so much stuff, have been massive support of my career, and really seeing the same thing. Everybody, like, the public events are typically stock market and real estate. But then there's a ton of other variables. So around 2003 and 4 is when I thought, well, if I can flip houses, I can flip businesses. So I started with little stuff like spas and salons and a pizzeria, little service-based businesses, and business is business. So when you know how to market, sell, understand cash flow, you understand the market dynamics, you understand industry trends, you can pretty much run any business. So when people say, how are you in so many diverse things? Well, because I find the experts in the one thing that they just want to do the one thing really well. I want to do a lot of stuff. So I found the alternatives pretty early in my career. And given that I worked with Chevron, I knew about gas and oil. So I'd been in gas and oil. I consistently for every year of my career. That is my ultimate tax strategy. So at the last quarter of the year, we watch every month, what's going on in the income. And then the last strategy is my tax strategist is a specialist in gas and oil. So he can literally down to the penny say, if you do this, you will be down in like below 2%. But sometimes those are big checks you got to strike. But it is an 85% depreciation schedule against your ordinary highest income. The greatest thing, better than a lot of real estate. I do have a lot of real estate, land, water rights. I just bought more water rights today, mineral rights. So, my funniest asset that I've owned and just sold a couple months ago, actually sold this January, we made this transaction, is the black hole. So the black hole is a business of the Raider Nation, of the NFL Raider football team. And
are you a Raider fan, Laurel?
No, I'm a football fan.
Okay, because I've been a Raider fan since I could walk. I was going to say you are like totally in sync if you're a Raider fan, but go ahead.
Well, I am, because I own the black hole, and so I have a lot of black hole and Raider stuff, and gone to Raider games, and I've done all that. No Gorilla, no all the guys, right? So had a fun run. But again, in a legacy move, my son is now becoming a CPA. Look, and you have some assets, Mom, that are crazy. Like I own I invested in a Broadway play. I've done all sorts of different things, right? Kevin Harrington and I took a huge run. That's another, like before Shark Tank, a ride around Shark Tank. He and I took a huge run listening to pitches, like before Shark Tank became Shark Tank. He and I and Barbara Corcoran had another show on TV called The Millionaire Inside. So then we would do, Kevin and I ran around for years taking pitches, and then like people want us on their team. And at that point, I'm like, I don't want all this stuff. But I did. I mean, he and I would take 2-3%. So you have this whole laundry list of 2 and 3% of a bunch of stuff. Most of it doesn't make it, right? Because they really in 2 and 3% is not getting any of our attention. It's like nice to put our resume on your board and say that we're there with you, but it's not going to help you grow your company anymore. So it's been an interesting journey through, I bet, I don't even know, hundreds of different asset classes and funny little things. And the asset I just want to talk about, because I know we're going to have to wrap up soon, is Roth IRAs for people who want to be wealthy. The minute your kids are born, mine, day one, got a Roth IRA, and I funded it. And that's going to be my gift for my kids forever. I'll always fund that for them, and then my grandkids. But buying Bitcoin at 4, and then wrapping it again at 9, and then having a sell-off strategy at 20, buy back in, have me just keep growing that. That alone is a massive asset, tax-free, tax-deferred. And a lot of, people, they just have such an odd opinion because of the stock market, and they're so stock, and I call it park and pray. Park your money with a financial planner and pray to God they do something with it, instead of like learn and take control of it and understand it.
And get it to move. Movement is the law of God. If air doesn't go in and out of our bodies, we die. If blood doesn't flow through our bodies, it dies. If water, if your water doesn't move, it dies. And if money doesn't move, it dies. And so like people, I always say to people, I mean, the fact that people are being told your greatest asset is the equity in your home and your 401k. And people believe that. I mean, people believe that every day. And it's sad because
you've been lied to.
That you've been lied to, and you're going to figure it out when you're 80, but it doesn't even make sense to put your money somewhere, like you said, park and pray for 20, 30, 40 years. And by the way, I live with all these people in Florida, and the ones in my neighborhood that own real estate and businesses, and they understand cash flow, they're like, yes, let's redo the clubhouse. Yes, let's redo the golf course. And the other people are like, no, they're in scarcity. They're in this scarcity mindset with their bodies, with their with their money, with everything. And they think that their life, let's just hold on. I can't, look, I got $10 million. I'm not going to run out of money, but I'm just got to, make sure I don't, and I'm like, that is no way to live. And what does that cause? It causes stress. What is every illness and disease? What is the root of it? Stress. So you're going to die. I tell people, by the way, since I just turned 60 last Monday. So we're very close. Babies. Exactly. And so I stole this, by the way. I didn't have this is not my original thought, but I say, what I call 60, Loral?
What?
And you say what? And I say halfway, because I really believe that with all of the breakthroughs, and if I could really just find really good food to eat, then I think I could live to be 120. And as long as I was, have you ever been exposed to Dan Sullivan?
Oh yeah.
So one of my favorite guys, I love that he writes, because I wasn't a great student, so I love that he writes 49-page books, that have like 1 or 2 lessons in them that I can understand. But his book, Who Not How. So it's like you're hearing all these things that Laurel's talking about, and you're like, well, how do I learn about that? Well, no, you don't learn about that. You go engage with Loral and her team. So how would somebody do that, Loral?
Yeah, and my saying to that is say yes and figure out who knows how, because you're never going to figure out how. So just say yes and keep marching. So you get a hold of me with Loral Langemeier. It's Loral, and then Langemeier. The Millionaire Maker is my YouTube channel. So you and everybody over 5 should be on that. Family friendly. The podcast, Loral's Real Money Talks. You grab any of my books at any time. In fact, I have a gift for everybody. If they go to Ask Loral, which, by the way, you can always go to Ask Loral, AskLoral, AskLoral.com. Ask a question, make a request, and we will give you all 5 of the books. I can't give the kids' book. That's still under McGraw-Hill's command, but we can give all the 5 books on like an ebook copy. And then once a month, Jim, I do it's called the Millionaire Intensive, and it's it's basically the structure of how do you sequence and become a millionaire. What I teach is, against all the lies, and it's really a lifestyle. And then we take people into making money for the afternoon. So we build a funnel, a tripwire, tell them how that really works. Like, we're so transparent, because I just find so many people who have the right to educate. They just give little clues. They don't give the plan. So, and then 3 of the hours at the end, we put them in a marketplace. So they learn to sell through Zoom, and people make money. And they'll say, well, I don't have a book yet. I know you're going to pre-sell your book. Well, I don't want to write about it. I said, just give us a topic. When I wrote about my kids' book, it was just Laurel's going to do a kids' book. And then I said, you go focus group, which is what I'm putting you in front of hundreds of people once a month to say, if I wrote this thing, would you buy it? And if they say, yeah, then put your money where your mouth is. Give me $10 to lock that position. And so I teach them how to really, like, just because, especially people I'll use you as an example, insurance or real estate, like bigger ticket. Oh, I've got a pipeline of $1 million. A pipeline's one thing, cash in the bank's another. That's when the sale is made, when the money's transferred. So I get people out of their BS thinking, or like women. I love being a woman because I can really pick on them because they're so passive in their sales process. And like, I just, they got to ask for it, and don't start with, well, here's my favorite women close. And it is mostly women that do this. Hey, Jim, I just told you everything about what I could do to help you. Let me know if you're interested. And then you end. And then you end. Like, what was that? That wasn't a date, for God's sakes. You're trying to make money. You have to say, when do you want to start? How do you want to pay? I'm available right now to take a credit card. You got to have those words come out of your mouth. And those aren't normal words. We're never taught those words. So I teach them to be super bold, which I don't think super bold. It's what's required to make money. And it's not hard to make money. It's just such a skill set that we're not taught. So to come around and then be confident in what you are and who you are, it's different.
Yeah, we're not taught to be free. We're taught to be nice little slaves. And then when we're 85 on our deathbed, we go, oh shit, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. Right. So, I love all of that. And, I think we got to do like a workshop or something, because we have a community that we could do it. Because 30 minutes or so, I have the thing small so I could see my questions over here. So I don't know how much time we've gone. So my producer's probably like, what are you doing? But a lot of questions that I have. But okay, so asklaurel.com. And then how do you get the game? Because I'm going to buy the game as soon as we get off this show.
You go to integratedwealthsystems.com. That's I called my mothership. So that's my 25 years of everything I've done. Okay. Ask Laurel is just a landing page. Ask a question, go away. Yeah. But to get the gifts from you, it's asklaurel.com/podcast, because that's where they heard us. And so they'll get 2 tickets. They'll get the 5 books. So you get the gifts through asklaurel.com/podcast. But Integrated Wealth Systems is my whole store, and the game and everything's there.
Awesome. Well, all right, Laurel. Through all of this success and all of these people, and by the way, I love John Gray too.
I want to work with him, Benvis Ranch.
Yeah. What's the best advice you've ever heard, or anybody's ever given you?
Boy, I have a lot of them.
You can use 2 or 3 if there's that pops in your head.
Well, I think the accumulation, I don't know who exactly it really was, but you got to have a team and you got to have a system.
Yeah.
And stay in your lane, strengthen your strengths, hire your weaknesses. You're only good about 3 to 5 things. So once you stay in that skill set, that, whatever your gifts are, you're going to win. When you wander around scattered, you'll never win. And if you don't start, you'll never win. So you got to keep moving. You got to keep moving.
You know what? Something you said about being transparent. I love that too, because I've learned a long time ago. I think people that aren't confident and really aren't competent, they aren't transparent, because they feel like, oh, somebody's going to find out my secret because I really don't know what the hell I'm doing. And when you're competent and you're confident, hey, here's everything. I can tell you all my losses. I can tell you everything. But like today, we're negotiating to buy another trash company. And the guy said, and I said, look, I want to kind of do this. I think what's fair is if we do this on a hybrid earn-out basis. And he said, well, I've never done that. I don't understand. I explained it to him. And I just said, basically, look, like it's an earn-out. We're going to give you a percentage of the profit and you're going to sell or finance this. And if the company keeps trending up, we're going to pay you X. If it's flat, we're going to pay you X. And if it goes down, we're going to pay you this. And if it goes really down, we're going to either bail or renegotiate, right? So now we're in the same boat. Now we're going in the same direction. And I said, so just find out from your business partner if this is an acceptable structure, then we'll go to the numbers. All the numbers will be fair. It's all going to be based on does the company continue to grow or doesn't it, right? And he was kind of a little bit taken aback because he was like, I don't have any objections to that. And I was like, good, because if you did, it would worry me. Yeah. Because this is very transparent. It's very win-win. I want you to want us to succeed, right? And I want to pay you more. Yeah. So
people don't understand that.
No. And
I want a good deal, which, you're going to get if the deal isn't fair and feel good all the way around, it's going to fall apart.
Yeah. I always want it to be 5 years from now. You want to have a beer with me because we both killed it.
We killed it.
Yeah. And not because, you know what? I got one over on Jim, I sold him this thing. It really wasn't worth that. Yeah. Like that's not in negotiations. I told him, I said, this is not us versus you negotiating. This is us coming to an agreement that works for everybody and it's a win for everybody.
Yep. That's brilliant.
And so, and I've bought over 30 businesses doing that system, and
love it.
It works. But, okay. So, next question. If God came down from heaven and only allowed you to retain the knowledge that you've received from one book, and if you want to give 2 or 3, you can, what would those books be?
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich. I love it.
By far.
Yeah.
An annual read. Most of my clients, because I have a gap analysis and a sequence, they'll make this an annual read. And then just whatever other ones that you want to pick. Atomic Habits is a good review. I would say you need an annual read. Just remind yourself what you need to be doing. You forgot you should be doing it. Power versus Force, another really good one. You need some energetic movement around that. And then if you just want like good old greats, you always go back to Bob Proctor's work.
Yeah, I love Bob Proctor stuff. Yeah. I mean, so, it's funny because there was again, I'm a big golfer. And so I watched golf, and Rory McIlroy won the Masters.
Yeah.
And after he won the Masters, he was kind of falling apart on Sunday. And then he got it back together, and they said, how did you get it back together? And he said, well, on the back of my yardage book, I have these affirmations. So of course they asked him, what are they? And I loved his answer, Loral. He said, all the same corny stuff that you've heard before.
Yep.
And he did. And the point is that Think and Grow Rich, all this stuff, you go, oh yeah, I already know that. Yeah, I know that. No. You have to be, some people have to be reminded as much as they have to be educated.
Yeah. And live it.
And you actually have to do it, right? Yeah. You could say, affirmations. I believe in this and this. Well, you actually have to do it. I do box breathing every morning, like the first thing when I wake up. And it's like, oh yeah, I know about that. Yeah, but do you do it? Because it calms your heart rate down. It gets and I want to go to the gym at 5 a.m. It's my favorite part of the day. Maybe the coffee before the gym is the favorite part. But all right, Loral, I think I could talk to you all day, and I love your energy, and I love what you're doing, and I love how you're helping people. And I would encourage everyone in the audience to go check it out and get to know Loral and see if it's a good fit, and just learn from her. And I really love what you're doing. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, audience, we're going to wrap this up like we always do with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and the strangest secret: you are what you think about, and you are and will become what you think about most. So here you go.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Thanks for listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If you want to start increasing your wealth building ability right now, go to community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free, in-depth training designed to help you build real, lasting wealth. See you next week.